Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the Drake Martinez Music Channel. I'm your host, and today we're going to be talking about bass guitar fundamentals. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there also. This is my first one, so I'm really happy about that. And today, this instrument is getting its turn for the spotlight. It is the instrument that is synonymous with Seinfeld, with Flea slapping, and that movie, I think, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where the guy's like, slap at the bass, man. This instrument is the backbone of every song that you hear. And if you don't believe me, next time you go listen to music in your car, go on to the audio settings and turn bass all the way down. And you will see exactly, or hear and feel what exactly this instrument provides. It is the backbone of the song. It provides the canvas in which the vocals, guitars, trumpets, keyboards, piano, all those types of instruments can paint upon, and provides that link between rhythm, the drums, and melody, those other instruments that I just mentioned. So it's really, really important. If you're interested in this instrument and you want to learn more, you found the right video. We're going to be talking about technique. We're going to be talking about genres of music, and just like some basic examples of like how to play this instrument, and the style in which it's played. And this is normally referred to as bass lines. It's the contribution and the link that the bass provides in terms of its rhythm and the melody. And we're going to break those concepts down. If you guys like this content, give us a like. By us, I mean me. Give us a like, a subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I know it's been a little bit of time since I made a new video, but like I said, fatherhood has been, you know, keeping me really busy. So without further ado, we're going to get into that content. So for technique, now a lot of people have this misconception that the bass guitar, because it has fewer strings, is an easier instrument than the guitar, and nothing could be further from the truth. Although guitar players have to learn more in terms of like chord shapes and finger patterns, they might know more about scales, but that they're able to make more mistakes live than a bass guitarist is able to make. The reason for that is because finger placement on the left hand is, and the right hand, but especially on the left hand, is vitally important for the bass. Now, similarly for the right hand, your right hand technique, or vice versa if you're a left-handed player, is going to be very crucial in terms of recording. So how the sound actually comes out. And when you get to the level where you're starting to play for recordings, you'll really hear a huge difference between a warmer sound that will blend into the mix better in certain situations. So, for example, like if you can really hear the difference between if I play up closer on the neck, and whereas if I play over here on the bridge, it's a lot brighter. So, your proper left hand technique is going to be pushing down on just the tip of your finger. Your thumb is going to be right in line with your middle finger, or right in line with your index finger if you're playing if you're playing one of the other scales. I'm going to get into that in a second. Now, it's going to be right behind it, right over here. Your fingers are going to be as close to the fretboard as possible. And you're going to try not to lift your fingers too much. So if you're going to do like you want to keep those fingers as close as possible. Go down to the next string and do 1, 2, 3, 4 again. Now with your right hand, you're going to want to be plucking with each finger in an alternating fashion, right and then left, or first finger, second finger, first finger, second finger. And that will really help you enable yourself to be able to play with both fingers. A lot of bass players can play with all 4 or 3, but for now, just try to get really comfortable with 2, maybe just 1 if it's really difficult for you. But you really do want to start getting used to that idea of alternating. Now your thumb can rest on the pickup. If you have a jazz bass, it's got 2. If you got the precision bass, it's going to be over here. This is like the Music Man style, and it's all the way in the back. So, or if you want to like anchor it on like over here, or like kind of like that, like on the pick guard, you can do that as well. So, again, just the tip of your finger, and right behind the thumb, in terms of like the middle finger or your second finger. This would be your first, second, third, and then your fourth finger, just on the tip. And you don't want to keep your knuckles bent like that. You want them to be strong and curved. So, for example, you don't want to be playing like that. You want to be playing like that. And that's going to give you stamina. That's going to give a good sound. That's going to come out really nice and clear when you're playing and recording. And then also, your finger placement is going to be really crucial in terms of like where it is on the fret. This is going to prepare you in the long run to be able to play a fretless. Now, your intonation needs to be spot on, so you're going to need to do a lot of like ear training in terms of being able to play a fretless. But if you have a fretted bass like this one, you don't want to play on the fret. So the fret is these metal protruding things that is what you're giving you the sound. In other words, you're pinching the string between the fretboard and the fret. And then the fret is the part that is making that specific part of the string make the sound, if that makes sense. So next time you're doing it, look at it. Now you want your finger to be tucked in. I'm gonna try to like put that up there. Like you want it to be tucked in right in the corner of the fret, but not on it. If you're on it, it's gonna sound like this. It's not gonna sound good. You want it tucked in right in the corner. Right in that pocket. And the reason for that is because, one, it's going to make the sound tighter. Secondly, it's going to make your fingers align better when you're playing the scale. And we're going to get into that in a second. So over here, my pinky is lined up nicely to also play in the pocket. Whereas if I was on the fret, or if I was like in the middle of the fret, now it's like more difficult and I got to stretch my fingers more. So that's going to help you also in the long run. Now, what you want to play is going to be practicing your scales. And what I mean by that is your major and your minor scale. Now, we're not going to get too crazy into music theory. Personally, you don't really need to know a lot of music theory for me. You just kind of need to know the shapes. You need to know, and then over time, your understanding will enable you to play more adept. You'll be able to become more adept at playing different scales and connecting them and so forth. But for right now, if you're a beginner or if you're just starting to like, well, what do I want? What do I play on the bass guitar? You want to know these scales, and they're not really that hard, or they're pretty simple. So let's start off with the major scale. We're gonna go on G. G is the third fret on this low E string. And we're going to go on the second finger again. So it's first, second, third, fourth finger. And we're going to go on the G, on the note G, third fret on this low E string. And we're going to go 2, 4 in terms of our fingers. So 2, 4. Next string down is 1, 2, 4. And again, we're keeping those previously mentioned techniques into mind. And you want to start doing those as soon as possible because you don't want to develop those bad habits, especially for bass. Next string down is 1, 3, 4. So 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4. That's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. But we're just doing, we're just doing it on the bass. That's all. Now, this shape can be applied anywhere on the bass guitar. So, for example, if I want to move that shape to the 7th fret, I'm going to be playing a B major. Now, similarly, if I do that over here, I'm also playing a B major. A. E. Now, the next shape you're going to really want to know is the minor shape. And the minor shape is very similar. It's just shifted a little bit. So the major scale, use this finger is like your center of gravity, if you will. Your center of gravity is now going to shift to this finger. And what do I mean by that? You're going to go over to B, to make it a little bit easier because you have to kind of like stretch a little bit more. And you're going to play 1, 3, 4. Next string down is 1, 3, 4. Next string down is 1, 3. And that's your minor shape. So again, anywhere you want to do that, the bass is symmetrical. So anywhere you want to do that, it's going to make a minor sound. You can also do it here. A minor. A minor over here. All right, so now that we know those two, those two shapes, we can practice that with good technique. And we can do alternating picking style, or you can use a pick, which it's really up to you. And then once you kind of get more comfortable with that, you can start doing some things like slapping, there's two different styles. Like some people do it like this and then pluck like that, and then some people do it like this and then pluck like that. I tend to do it more like that style, but I'm not really like a big fan of slapping. I think it's kind of sloppy. I know that like a lot of people are really great at it. I'm not, but you know, it does kind of have like a cool sound, like that song "Higher Ground" that the Red Hot Chili Peppers covered from Stevie Wonder. Like, again, I'm not the best at it, but you know, it's fun. I'm definitely not hating on it. It's not really my cup of tea, but there's plenty of people out there that can teach you how to slap once you get better at and have a good foundation on the finger style and on the pick. Now, a lot of people hate on the pick, like people that, you know, are like really hardcore bass players, but I think the pick has its place, especially if you're getting into recordings. There's just some times where you're going to need like a nice punchy sound from the pick, especially if you're playing like punk style or certain types of rock. You're just going to need that like a lot of like punk rock is like that. Like it's just going to be really difficult to get that with your finger. Not to say that you can't, but like I kind of prefer my finger style sound actually just there, but that is also without the mix of the other instruments. And believe it or not, this instrument, when it's played in the mix with those other sounds, it's totally different. It's completely different. And but building yourself up with those proper techniques that we just mentioned, and using those finger style patterns to build your bass lines and develop your sense of like creating a bass line is really going to be super important as a bass player, because 90% of what you're going to be doing is bass lines once you get to a point where you're playing with other people. That's your contribution, if you will. So initially, what you're going to want to do is play like chord progressions that enable you to just like cover the song and hold it down, if you will. And first off, we're going to start off with just playing the root note of the song that we're playing. So let's just make one up as we go along. So right now I'm going to go with something in like the key of G major. This is something that you're going to want to practice a lot as a bass player, because G major, E minor, they're the same thing, and you play them very frequently. So let's go with G to E to C, D, back to G, C, D, D. So you can build on that by adding in the fifth. And then the fifth is, if we go back to that major scale, it's the fifth is. So we're going to go back and forth and just do the root note and then the fifth. We're going to go back and forth between G and E, the root note and the fifth, root note and the fifth. So it's going to sound like this. All right, cool. Now we can do the octave. And the octave is the eighth. That's the Greek word for like octagon, like UFC fans, like like the eight, right? That's the eighth sided shape. Oct is the eighth note. So if we go back to that major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The eighth note is the same as the root note. It's just an octave higher. It's just the reset, right? So we're going to go 1 to the 8, 1 to the 8, E, 1 to the 8, 1 to the 8, and we're just going to go back and forth and kind of get a sense of what that sounds like. And of course, this is a drill to build ourselves into being able to do a bass line. Okay, so let's go back to that. Again, it might be a little bit confusing for people that are doing it on like the open section. You can also do it on the open. You can also transfer your E over here. So instead of being like, you can do. Or over here. It's the same. It's just O, then E. So you can do the major scale with open side over here, or all the way over here, and it's all going to be the same. And of course, now we can kind of like hear how these sound together, and then you would use the other notes, like of the major scale, to build your bass line. So an example would be like a bass line that I made for one of my songs called Foosball in Mexico, where I use the major shapes to create a bass line for that song. And really just using that plus like some adjacent notes, I was able to make a bass line. So you can listen to how that sounds right over here. So there, right there, you're seeing a lot of different techniques that are involved, like sliding, a lot of different like fingerstyle patterns, a lot of like stopping, staccato, legato, and like that is how you build over time a bass line. It starts from the basics of just hitting the root. And for a great example would be like reggae. And reggae, so right now we can analyze really quick a reggae bass line, very famous. It's called from a song called Exodus, and Aston Barrett his brother was the drummer of that band. So like they were just like totally syncopated. And he was really trying to make his brother sound amazing and on the drum set. So he doesn't really play like a whole lot of flashy stuff, like kind of like how I was just playing. It's kind of like a little bit more flashy. But in Exodus, it's just very simple. Like so, the root would be like A over here, but he's kind of like shifting it down and going like. That's something you're going to see a lot also on the bass guitar. It's like a main influence of like a walking style bass, which I also used in like Foosball in Mexico. And a great song for that is to learn Moon Dance once you get the hang of like how to play. It's by Van Morrison, and the bass line goes something like. So you're not like always going to be doing a lot of like major and minor stuff. You can also play those like wrong notes, if you will, in order to create a bass line. So it'd be a walking bass line. So it can sound something like this, like. So again, we can go back to that bass line for Moon Dance. I developed a lot of bad habits when I first started. And it wasn't until like maybe like 10, 15 years after I started playing that I took some lessons with like a really great bass guitar player back when I was living in Boston named Riley Hagan. And he showed me like, hey, this is, these are bad techniques. You want to, do this and that. But, sometimes it's a little, difficult to overcome. But if you start off the right way and if you practice it, your technique will definitely improve. Mine is a lot better than it was back then, but I still have some bad habits that I revert back to unconsciously. So that's the other amazing thing about the bass guitar is there's so much room for improvement, and there's so much room to just continue to grow and to continue to see yourself flourish in this instrument. And if you might have just heard that a little bit, like I also encourage you to experiment on your journey about playing on different parts of the neck. Like you get that really like meaty, like warm sound, like for reggae, like even playing on the neck. Or whereas like over here, like I was doing that walking bass line, you want to be like all the way at the bridge. So like yeah, you see how my pinky was going down? You don't want that. Like really punchy sound. So, all right, I'll leave you guys with that. If you have any questions or other things that you want to see for the bass guitar or for the guitar, let me know in the comments. And we'll see you guys next time.